Imagine an ordinary American family, a husband, a wife, two young sons. They live in New York, go to work, dream about the future. Now imagine this couple, the husband and wife, being executed in the electric chair. They became the only American citizens sentenced to death for espionage during peacetime. They were accused of the crime of the century, stealing America's greatest secret, the atomic bomb, and handing it over to the Soviet Union. A crime that, in the words of the judge, changed the course of history and led to the Korean War. But the world was divided. To some, they were monstrous traitors who pushed humanity to the brink of nuclear apocalypse. To others, they were innocent victims of a witch hunt, executed without sufficient evidence to intimidate all dissenters. So who were Julius and Ethel Rosenberg? Idealists who believed they were saving the world? Or cold-blooded spies? Was Ethel even guilty at all? Or was she executed to pressure her husband, who refused to talk? Today, we will examine declassified FBI files, read their final letters, and try to separate truth from propaganda, in a case that is still debated to this day. Brace yourselves. The end of this story is shocking. To understand how two loving people ended up in the electric chair, you have to understand the world that made them. A world where the American dream had turned into a nightmare for millions. This is New York in the 30s, the time of the Great Depression. It was a city of broken dreams. Capitalism, which had seemed indestructible, was cracking. While some drank champagne on skyscraper rooftops, others lost everything: their jobs, their homes, their dignity. In this atmosphere of despair and injustice, a generation of young people grew up asking, "Isn't there another way?" One of them was Julius Rosenberg. Julius Rosenberg, the son of Jewish immigrants who had fled the pogroms of the Russian Empire, was the embodiment of hope. He grew up in the poverty of the Lower East Side, but possessed a brilliant mind. He graduated from school with honors and entered the prestigious City College to become an electrical engineer. To him, the world was made of logical circuits and the laws of physics. And he couldn't understand why society, unlike an electrical circuit, was structured so illogically and cruelly. The answer, like for many intellectuals of his time, he found in a radical idea. That idea was communism. Today, that word sounds like a curse, but back then, against the backdrop of a collapsed economy, it sounded like a promise of a world without exploitation, a world of equality and brotherhood. For Julius, this wasn't just politics, it was a science. He believed that society could be engineered correctly, like a complex mechanism. In 1936, in the midst of his college years, he joined the Young Communist League. And it was there, at one of the meetings, that he would meet the woman who would share his life, his faith, and his tragic fate. Who was this woman? Ethel Greenglass also grew up on the Lower East Side, but unlike the pragmatic Julius, she was a person of the arts. She had a strong mezzo-soprano voice and a dream to sing at Carnegie Hall. But the Great Depression stole her dream too. Instead of the opera stage, she had a monotonous job as a clerk at a shipping company for $16 a week. She channeled her passion and thirst for justice in another direction: the labor movement. She organized strikes, demanded better working conditions. She wasn't just a dreamer, she was a fighter. Their shared struggle brought them together. Julius was captivated by her strength and passion. Ethel saw in him a sharp mind and an unwavering faith in a better future. It was love at first sight, sealed by shared ideals. In 1939, they married. Their small apartment became not just a family home, but a place for heated political debates, a place where they and their friends dreamed of the coming world revolution. They were young, in love, and absolutely certain they were right. History, it seemed, was on their side. The young family's idol was shattered by history. The world was plunged in the fire of the Second World War. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, America entered the fray, and suddenly, yesterday's enemies became allies. The USA and the Communist Soviet Union found themselves in the same boat, fighting against a common monster, Nazi Germany. For American communists like the Rosenbergs, the moment of truth had arrived. To help the USSR now meant helping America. The line between ideology and patriotism blurred. Julius, as a valuable engineer, worked for the U.S. Army. He had access to the latest developments in radar and electronics, and in 1942, his idealism caught the attention of other people from Soviet intelligence. He was contacted by an agent with the codename Kalistrot, Alexander Feklisov. Julius wasn't offered money. He was offered something more, a chance to make a real contribution to the defeat of Hitler. He was to share technical information that could help the Red Army. Julius, convinced he was helping a common cause, agreed. He was given the codename Antenna and later Liberal. Julius turned out to be a surprisingly effective organizer. He wasn't James Bond. He was a quiet engineer who knew how to be persuasive. Using his contacts, he created a small but productive spy ring. His friends and colleagues who shared his views passed him classified data on aviation technology, radar, and guidance systems. All of this was funneled to Moscow through couriers. For Julius, this was his invisible war against fascism. But soon, a weapon appeared on the horizon that would change the rules of the game not only for him, but for all of humanity. The Manhattan Project, the most expensive and most secret program in history. America gathered the world's best minds to create a weapon of unprecedented power, the atomic bomb, a weapon that could end the war with a single strike. Soviet intelligence knew about the project and was desperately trying to penetrate its secrets. And it was here, in this global game, that a simple family connection would play the decisive role. Remember Ethel? She had a younger brother, David Greenglass. He was neither a scientist nor a brilliant engineer. He was a simple army machinist, and by an incredible twist of fate, he was sent to serve right there in the very heart of the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos. He was a small cog in a giant machine, but he had eyes and access to their workshops. When Julius found out, he realized this was his chance, the chance to obtain the world's greatest secret. During a leave in New York, he met with his brother-in-law and asked him directly if he was willing to help the Soviet Union and hasten the victory over Hitler. And David, influenced by his brother-in-law, agreed. It was here in this small New York apartment that the key act of espionage took place. David Greenglass, not fully understanding the monstrosity of the information he possessed, sketched out diagrams of the bomb's detonator system. And it was here, according to the prosecution, that Ethel Rosenberg transformed from a passive sympathizer to an active participant in the conspiracy. While the men discussed technical details, she, according to David's testimony, sat down at her Remington typewriter and neatly typed up her brother's handwritten notes to make them easier to pass to the courier. The sound of that typewriter would later become her death sentence. The bomb whose blueprints Julius and David had discussed in their kitchen had become a reality. It ended World War II, but it also began a new era, the age of nuclear fear. America became the sole and all-powerful possessor of the ultimate weapon. But not for long. In August 1949, seismologists detected something unthinkable. The Soviet Union had conducted its own successful atomic bomb test, years earlier than American experts had predicted. America was in shock. How could they have done it so quickly? There could be only one answer: treason. There was a mole somewhere inside the Manhattan Project. The FBI, under the leadership of the all-powerful J. Edgar Hoover, launched the greatest spy hunt in history, and the first thread was pulled from across the ocean. British counterintelligence exposed Klaus Fuchs, a high-ranking physicist who had worked on the project. He confessed to espionage and gave up his American courier, a chemist named Harry Gold. Gold, facing the prospect of a life sentence, began to talk. He named everyone, including the machinist from Los Alamos, whom he met in Albuquerque, identifying him by a torn half of a Jell-O box. The FBI came for David Greenglass, and he, cornered and trying to save himself and his wife Ruth, who was also involved, gave them the name of the man who'd drawn him into the plot, his brother-in-law, Julius Rosenberg.
In June 1950, they came for Julius. He denied everything. The only evidence against him was the testimony of Greenglass and Gold. No fingerprints, no documents, nothing. The evidence against Ethel was even weaker. But the FBI had a plan. They believed Ethel was the weak link. They arrested her, turning 2 little boys into orphans. The calculation was simple. Julius would break to save his wife, but they underestimated the strength of their convictions or the depth of their conspiracy. Both Julius and Ethel remained silent. The trial began in March 1951 and instantly became the biggest show in the country. This wasn't just a criminal case, it was a trial of an ideology. On one side of the scales, 2 Jewish communists from New York. On the other, the security of the entire nation in the midst of the Red Scare. The prosecution's star witness was David Greenglass, Ethel's brother. He stated on the stand, quote, "My sister, Ethel, sat down at the typewriter which we had given her as a gift, and she started to type. I was not standing over her shoulder, but I could see that she was typing what I had written." End quote. It was a knife in the back. This very testimony about the clatter of the typewriter keys became the proof for the jury that Ethel was not just a wife, but an active participant in the spy ring. Decades later, declassified documents would show that Greenglass likely lied about his sister under pressure from the prosecution to save his own wife from prison. But back then, in 1951, his words sounded like a death sentence. The jury found them guilty. Judge Kaufman, in delivering the sentence, spoke words that would go down in history. "Your crime is worse than murder. You handed over to the Soviets the A-bomb, which caused the communist aggression in Korea, with the resultant casualties exceeding 50,000 Americans. And who knows but that millions more of innocent people may pay the price of your treason." The sentence? Death in the electric chair. The world erupted. Protests swept across the globe. Even the Pope and Albert Einstein pleaded for clemency. But neither President Truman nor his successor Eisenhower would back down. In their final letter to their sons, they wrote, "Always remember that we were innocent and could not wrong our conscience. We implore you not to mourn, but to fight for your own names and the name of your parents. We embrace you and kiss you with all our strength. Your loving parents, Julius and Ethel." On June 19, 1953, Julius Rosenberg died after the first jolt of electricity. Ethel Rosenberg's execution did not go as smoothly. It took several jolts. To the very end, they insisted on their innocence. They became the first and last American civilians to be executed for espionage in peacetime.